I'm Tomlin Sheary, and this is Chocolate Avenue Baking Company. I have so many people ask me, how can I support the channel? Can I buy your baked goods, the desserts that I do on my YouTube channel? And now the answer to that question is yes. If you're local to Hershey, Palmyra, Harrisburg, Lancaster, York, even within maybe like a 50 square mile radius of Hershey, I will actually hand deliver desserts to you, and you can buy, or you can come to the shop and pick up as well. And you can buy anything that I make on my channel at chocolateavenue.shop. And I just wanted to make people aware of that I do have that now. It's a fully functional e-commerce site, so you can buy anything you like on there, and I can deliver it to you if you're local, or you could pick up. So once again, it's chocolateavenue.shop, not .com. Make sure you put .shop. Alright, so now let's get into today's video. Today we're going to be talking about this magnificent cake, and it's called a Southern Caramel Cake. Now, in my research, I was looking for an origin story, or at least where this cake came from and where it originated from. And there are a lot of bakeries down south in the southern part of the United States that specialize in Southern caramel cakes, and they kind of have, made it their own thing. And those are beautiful, but I was looking for more of an origin story of where this cake specifically came from. And I suspect from my research, but I'm not positive about this, that it could have originated somewhere around the turn of the 20th century, maybe late 19th century, down in New Orleans. And it was adapted, I believe anyway, that there were versions of this cake floating around back then. And it was adapted from a cake called a dobos tort, or a dabash tort, which is a multiple layered Hungarian cake and the original dobos tort, however you say it, it was actually chocolate buttercream in the middle, in the layers of the cake, but then it was covered in a caramel. So I suspect that since it came from somewhere down south, I think that it was probably adapted originally from that cake. And so now we're going to go over to the test kitchen, and I have to make another one of these for an order, so I'm going to show you how this incredible American original cake comes together. So let's get started. So I'll put all of the weights and measures down in the description box as usual, but right off the top here, we'll go over these ingredients real quickly. We have 14 ounces of cake flour, 6 ounces of granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of fine sea salt. For the wet ingredients, I have 8 egg yolks. I have 1 cup of full fat buttermilk, a half cup of melted organic coconut oil, and 4 ounces of melted and cold unsalted butter. For the meringue, I have the 8 whites. I have 8 ounces of granulated sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. So let's get started on this outstanding Southern caramel cake. Now this yellow cake that I'm going to do for this recipe is exactly the same cake as I did the yellow cake for the last episode. The only difference with this is I'm using cake flour, non-GMO cake flour in this. So I'm just going to do this really fast because I just did this exact same cake, but basically what we're going to do here is we're going to sift together all of our dry ingredients. The cake flour and the sugar in there, baking powder, baking soda, sea salt. Just sift all that together. Once you have it sifted, then just whisk it to evenly distribute all of those dry ingredients in there. We can set that to the side. Next, we're going to whisk together all of our wet ingredients in a separate bowl. I'm going to start out with the room temperature egg yolk here. Start to whisk in the coconut oil first. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the melted unsalted butter. And it's cooled down to room temperature. Just drizzle that in. So then I'm going to slowly start drizzling in the full fat room temperature buttermilk into this. A teaspoon or so of the vanilla bean paste here. Okay, so then as soon as you have all of your wet ingredients well combined, I'm going to transfer this into a larger bowl here so that we can add the dry ingredients in here. Forgot to do that part. And if your wet ingredients look a little curdled, all is not lost. It's fine. It'll all come together in the batter. It's not. It may have a little bit of a curdled look. So your dry ingredients should already be well sifted and blended together, but I like to give it another sift here. Bring the dry ingredients into the wet in about 3 different installments here. So you can just take your whisk and just combine until there's no visible lumps. So just whisk everything together until it's nice and smooth. And the lumps are all out, and at this point the cake batter is going to be very thick, but we're going to be lightening this with a meringue, which we'll do next. Okay, so now I'm going to make the meringue to lighten this cake batter. So stand mixer, whisk attachment. Your egg whites, as always, should be at room temperature for this. So you can start your egg whites on medium just till they start to get soft peaks. As soon as you start seeing soft peaks, you could go ahead and add your little 1/4 teaspoon here of the cream of tartar. That's just to stabilize it. So then as soon as your meringue starts to whip up, you can slowly stream in your 8 ounces of the granulated sugar until it gets beautiful and glossy. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so this meringue now is holding peaks, and that's about as far as I want to take it. Should not fall out on your head. And now I'm going to lighten this batter by folding this meringue in. I would probably fold this in about 3 or 4 installments. So there you go. What once was thick and dense is now nice and airy. And after you've added all of your meringue into the cake base, you shouldn't see too many white streaks of the meringue left. A little bit is okay, but mostly incorporated in there. Try not to knock all the air out. And then what I recommend doing is weighing each of your cake pans just on a digital scale. Just tear that out, and we're going to weigh this cake batter in here and then into a 350 oven for 22, 23 to maybe 25 minutes. We'll check them, and when we come back, we're going to get working on this Southern Caramel Buttercream. And so now we can get started on this Southern Caramel Buttercream. Now, I did a lot of research online and elsewhere looking for different types of Southern Caramel Buttercream, and I found all kinds of crazy different ways that housewives and people out there make their Southern Caramel Buttercream. But for me, I like to stick to pastry kitchen doctrine, you might say. So from my point of view, caramel buttercream, that's two different components. You have a soft caramel, and I'm using a French buttercream. And so now the idea behind this is you want your caramel and your buttercream, when they're done, to be roughly the exact same consistency and texture so that the two can combine in the right proportions to make a perfect caramel buttercream. So now we're going to get started on the caramel component to this buttercream, and I think I'm going to bring you over here so you can see how this goes together. Alright, so the first step that you're going to want to do here is put your heavy cream into a heavy bottom, smaller sauce pot. So you're going to need a smaller sauce pot and a larger sauce pot separately. And I'll get to that in a minute and explain to you why you need the larger one. But the first thing we're going to do is bring this cream, and at this point I would normally scrape a vanilla bean in here, but I have some vanilla paste that has the beans inside of it. So how much? Probably, I don't know, as much as you like. I'll put about a teaspoon in there. I like a good vanilla bean flavor in fresh dairy caramel. I think it's delicious that way. So bring that up to a scald. So while my heavy cream and vanilla is coming up to the scald there, I'm going to set that to the side a little bit while keeping a close watch on that. And the next thing I'm going to do is, with my granulated sugar, I'm going to squeeze a couple of teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice into that. And the reason why I'm doing this is this will keep your caramel smooth, and it won't sugar out on you or create crystals. So rub your sugar with your hands and get that lemon and sugar sort of mingling there. And the lemon is really, it's not for the taste in this, it's for the acid. This is just a foolproof method for making sure that your caramel comes out nice and smooth and it's not going to be crystallized or do anything stupid. So then you'll start to see your heavy cream starting to come up to the boil here, and you just want to get it to the point where you start to see bubbles breaking, and then you're just going to want to keep this to the side and keep it warm. So I'm going to just put a lid on it and keep this hot. So then the next thing you're going to do here is put your burner on medium high heat maybe, and have yourself some sort of a candy thermometer. You're going to need something because we're going to take this close to the softball stage here, so you're going to want to have that in there. And so just go ahead and add in your half cup of water and your sugar with the lemon. This is 2 ounces of non-GMO corn syrup going in here. And again, that's another doctoring agent in an effort to keep your caramel smooth. And you can just go ahead and put your salt in there. So what we're going to do with this sugar syrup is we're going to bring this to a nice dark amber color. And what this does to your caramel is it gives it a beautiful caramelized sugar taste, which is, it's kind of hard to beat that flavor. So you have to bring this to the point where it's a dark amber color. And it is a little harder to tell with organic sugar because organic sugar is less processed and it has some of the molasses still in it. So you just gotta look for a dark amber color, but don't take it to the point where it smells burnt. If it smells burnt, throw it away because that means you messed it up. You'll have to start over. So that's not fun. So you'll want to stir this till it comes to the boil and then just leave it alone. So then another thing you can do with this, just to be on the safe side, is brush down your crystals here on the side, just to make sure that there's nothing hanging out here on the side of the pot that can fall back down into the sugar solution and create a problem for you. And so just to give you an idea on time wise that you're going to want to cook this, you're going to want to cook this for between 5 to 8 minutes. So depending on how brave you are to go close, the darker it gets before it goes acrid and burnt, the more flavor you're going to develop into your caramel. So keep an eye on it, 5 to 8 minutes, and then I'll show you what's next here. Okay, so I've taken this caramel here right to the edge of just a little over 8 minutes. Hopefully you can see the color there. It's a nice dark amber color, and I can smell the sugar, the cooked sugar smell. Has a distinct smell to it. So now, as soon as it reaches that stage, though, you want to take it off the heat briefly, and you keep your burner on. And now you're going to see why we have it in a large pot like that. So you should have your cream that's still kind of warm, even hot, and just start to drizzle that cream in there. And as you can see, it boils up pretty furiously. So you want to use a pretty nice sized pot to do that in. And so now, to make this easier for me to temp this, I'm going to put this back into the small pot. And we're going to put this right back on the heat. So just be really careful doing this. this stuff touches your skin, well, let's just say you're probably not going to ever finish your cake because you'll be at the emergency room getting some kind of skin grafts, I would assume. But just carefully transfer it back into the small pot and get it back on the heat as fast as you can. So keep your burner on, and you can put it at this point between medium and medium high, I would say. And so now at this stage, it's safe to add the butter in here. We're going to put this butter in here. And now this is where the art and science of candy making comes in handy, because it's really important. Temperature is the key to this. So in order for this to combine with a French buttercream, you're going to have to cook this to, I'm going to say, roughly 236 or so. You don't want to get it too stiff because then it won't want to combine into the buttercream. But you want to cook this to around, just, I would say, 234 to 236, and we can check the texture. But for all intents and purposes, this is a caramel now, fresh dairy caramel, and you can start to temp this. Don't put it on too high because it can still burn. You're going to want to keep a close eye on this and watch the temperature. And then once this gets up to the caramel stage, the softball stage, or just under the softball stage, I'll take this off and show you. And then that'll have to cool down 100% before you can obviously add that into a buttercream. Okay, so I am right around 236 right now, and it is bubbling furiously. And I don't want to take this too much further just because I'm afraid it might get too thick. So I'm going to take this off right now. And as I said, this has to cool down completely. So in the interest of time, I'm going to pour this into the bottom of a hotel pan here. Okay, so now that we have that caramel business out of the way, let's make a perfect French buttercream. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put your 1.5 pounds of granulated sugar into a small sauce pot with a candy thermometer. And this is a 1/2 cup of filtered water. Just want to move the sugar around until all that water gets into the sugar evenly and you don't see any dry sugar. So make sure you also have some water on the side with a pastry brush, and always scrape down the sugar crystals on the side of your saucepan so that they can't fall back down in and start any crystallization in there. So while that's cooking, we're going to bring this sugar solution up to 240 degrees Fahrenheit. And while that is cooking, I'm going to put 12 egg yolks, grass-fed, pasture-raised eggs, and put that into the bowl of your stand mixer. So as soon as your sugar syrup comes up to 240 degrees Fahrenheit, put your egg yolks on high with a pinch of salt in there. So then when you have your hot sugar syrup streamed down along the side of the bowl into your egg yolks, now it's important to just let this go on high for as long as it takes before it's completely at room temperature. It's very hot right now, so you have to bring this down to room temperature before you can add the butter. Okay, so now once your buttercream has come to room temperature, now I'm starting to add in the butter to it. And you can reduce the speed now to about medium and just add in the butter chunks a little bit at a time until it's nice and creamy. So now that your buttercream is nice and creamy and you have all of that butter incorporated, now it's time to add in this soft caramel, and this should be about the texture like that. It's soft, pliable, definitely not set up, and that's completely dependent on temperature. You have to cook that caramel to about 236 degrees, 235. And I like to add this caramel into the buttercream at a fairly high speed so that the whip can smash that caramel into the buttercream. So it's a bit violent, but this is how it looks. Okay, so your yellow cake layers should be completely cool, and here we have a bowl of exquisite golden caramel French buttercream. So now we're going to crumb coat this cake and set it up in the refrigerator. That's step one. And this buttercream is so delicious. So don't skimp on how much you put on your cake. You'll be glad you used copious amounts of this stuff for this cake. And the recipe that I'm going to give down in the description box is going to give you plenty to do at least one 9-inch cake. You could even, this is plenty to do a 10-inch cake, and still be generous with it. Or, you know, 2 8-inch cakes I'm sure you could do with this recipe, with the amount, the volume. So you're never going to get your crumb coat 100% smooth and perfect, but just try to get it as smooth as you can. And by setting this up in the refrigerator, it will seal in all of the crumbs, and hopefully when you put your top coat on, it'll be more attractive. So we're going to set this in the refrigerator for about a half an hour, and then we'll be back in a minute. All right, there's our crumb coat nice and set, and now it's time to give this cake a beautiful home style finish. and then just walk away. Alright, so now it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for. And that's to try this magnificent Southern caramel cake. Now, admittedly, with the buttercream and the two parts of the buttercream and everything, this is quite a project. So you could split this up over 2 days, you know, make your cakes one day and the caramel buttercream the next day. But you already know, I mean, just look at it. I'm not even sure if this cake is legal, to be honest with you, but let's just give this a try and see how it is. And I'll give you my honest impression here. Yeah. I mean, wow. Yeah. Honestly, this is everything you probably think it is. This is really one of the most delicious cakes I've ever put in my mouth. The yellow cake recipe that I give you down in the description box, this is incredibly moist and just an absolutely beautiful texture. So yeah, definitely I highly recommend you give this cake a try, or if you don't feel like going through the whole project, better yet, buy one from me if you're local at chocolateavenue.shop. But yeah, please give this a try. If you're not from around here, I'm sorry I can't really ship right now. Shipping is ridiculously expensive, but if you are local, you're one of my local subscribers, please consider supporting the channel and buying one of these magnificent Southern caramel cakes. And thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.